course,
and
that speaks.
also on Mixer.
Tessie, 1, 2, 3. Tap, tap, tap.
So give us a minute to show up, because it sometimes takes a minute. It takes a minute. Oh, I'm hearing us on Mixer. We're live on Mixer. Hello, Mixer.
Yeah, I should fire that
Probably
up.
close that now. And we're also live on YouTube. Fantastic.
Firing up my Mixer PWA that I've installed through the new Edge.
The poire.
Wow, I forgot about that.
Need to start pushing that. The poires.
Yeah.
The future of app development is poire.
And for a lot of people call them B-rolls, but they're really called brawls.
Ew. Sounds gross. Brawls.
Bro. Brawls.
All right, hello everyone. We will be beginning in just a second, as per usual. We're just letting the stragglers tune in. We'll start at the half-hour mark.
Camera doesn't look bad. Just looks a little redder.
I'm just red today. I'm
Yeah.
evil. I'm Kylo Ren.
Kylo Red.
Kylo
Wow.
Ren.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I'm not using my Brio, my HD webcam. I'm using the built-in Surface Studios webcam, which is actually not terrible. It's just the color accuracy is a bit all over the place.
The Surface Pro X's cameras are amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and the microphones aren't terrible on there either.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Well, apparently the new MacBook 16-inch has an amazing set of microphones.
And a terrible camera.
And a terrible camera, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how they, but I heard the speakers are pretty dope.
Do you want to talk about the 16-inch MacBook and talk about
Yes.
how you thought or think Microsoft should have a rival one?
Yeah, we can do that.
I'll put it at the end in case we run out of time or have extra time.
Yeah, sometimes I'm at a loss for words and I don't rant enough on these podcasts.
Oh, Jez is now pinging us on GroupMe 100 times. Time to put my phone on mute.
All right, I'm going to tweet out. You are mentioned. You're welcome.
How do I mute this damn phone? Oh my god, really?
If it was an iPhone, you just use the switch.
Oh yeah, this is the OnePlus. It also has a switch. Of course, that's how that works.
I got to log into my Surface Pro. Hold on. It's restarting, and it's looking for me, and I feel bad if it's looking for me and you can't find me.
Oh, I should probably make sure my mic's all set up. Voice recorder. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. That doesn't sound like my mic. Hang on. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's working. All right. I'm ready to go when you are.
All right. I am recording.
I am also recording.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 156 for November 22nd, 2019. Hey everyone, Jan Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. As we get ready for the holidays, it's slowing down in news, but we still got some big things to talk about. And for some reason, I think I'll always find something to rant on. This week, we're going to talk about new 20H1 builds. So those are the latest releases for Windows 10 due in spring 2020. Why are we talking about them now? Well, because they're in the fast ring and they're almost done. Wait, what is that true? What's going on there?
Almost done.
We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, Cortana Mobile being pulled for everyone except Americans, as always. But we've been saying this for a while, actually, now. So it's kind of nice. We've been talking about how we think those apps are going to disappear, and that's what's happening. So we're right, I guess.
Yeah.
Surface earbuds got delayed. That's a bummer. But I don't know. In light of a certain other company launching something this week and miserably failing at it, we'll talk about that too. That's Google Stadia. But we'll talk about the Surface earbuds delay, what that means. But there is a little bit of an upside to it. But we'll also talk about that larger space of earbuds and how it's quite competitive. We'll talk about the pros and cons of those headsets, though. Apple looking for UWP developers. That's kind of interesting. So Apple looks to be making some apps, and they need UWP people to do that. Hopefully they can find someone. And we'll talk about Stadia, how Stadia as Zach says, Stadia sucks and xCloud rocks. And we'll troll, Google a little bit here, but we'll talk about Google's larger image problem, which is funny because used to be Microsoft's image problem, still is for some people, but obviously Google has some challenges here. I don't, I think the stuff is recoverable, obviously, but it's not a good. This is a rushed launch. It's pretty just bad coverage. And if we have a little bit of time, we'll talk about the 16-inch MacBook. Why? Well, because I think Microsoft still needs an answer to the Surface Book 2. Kind of as an answer to the Surface Book, to the MacBook 15-inch and now the 16-inch model, but it also isn't in some ways. We'll talk about the larger strategy of Surface Book and how that laptop has gone over time and what we expect for 2020, at least for a new version. Otherwise, Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I'm good. I'm actually really excited because I just realized that we are less than a month away from Star Wars. And that's probably the biggest movie this year for me. And I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, it feels weird. Growing up, I'm super old. So I remember just hearing rumors. So when I grew up, it was just Star Wars, and then it was Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and that was it. And there were rumors, and you would find an interview once in a while that, George Lucas actually had a episode 1, 2, and 3. That's why. And it didn't start, when it first came out, and it was episode 4. Everybody was like, why is it starting episode 4? And it was always weird. And then we heard these rumors that, there were supposed to be another 3 prequels, and then there was going to be 3 more after that. And the little bits came out. I think it was Irvin Kershner and stuff like that who directed Empire Strikes Back, had these talks with Lucas. And then it finally came to be, right? And their 90s, the prequel trilogy came out. I tried to convince myself these were good. And then, of course, now we're getting the last 3. And it's, obviously this new trilogy's been controversial for different reasons. It's the acting is good. The script isn't corny, and the special effects are good.
Yeah.
It's just some of the plot points went off the rails for that middle one. Mm-hmm. But I'm hopeful with J.J. Abrams. I actually do really, really like his stuff.
Do you think there will be time travel in the last one?
Time travel?
Do you think there's going to do it?
Why would there be time travel?
Because one of the rumors is that since episode 8 messed a lot of things up plot wise, that they're just going to undo it all.
They're going to retcon their own.
They'll go back in time and bring back Snoke and stuff.
No, I don't think that'll happen because
I hope not. I really hope not. They can't.
I think internally, J.J. Abrams is probably with Colin. I forgot his name now. The director of the Last Jedi. Mm-hmm. I think he's probably what did you do? But I don't think publicly he can't do that.
I know he can't. I know.
Yeah, so I don't think
And honestly, I don't really want them to. I kind of like the challenge of, so this is what we got to deal with? Okay.
That's how I think Abrams approached this. I think he's probably listen, sometimes they can maybe fix this. Of course, I said that too with Revenge of the Sith. I was
hey, I think
this is the one where it's going to all come together.
Yeah, it's the strongest one of the prequels.
It is, but I hate the costume designs. I hate everything. The only thing that was good about that prequel trilogy was Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes, I agree.
Phenomenal. Yeah. And that's why for so long we're just give him his own thing, and now they finally are. So that's exciting. Yeah. But I could have, and Mace Windu was pretty cool too, but everything else I thought was terrible. And I'll say the only lightsaber fight that was good was the Darth Maul one at Phantom Menace.
Yeah,
that scene is still, I think, one of the best choreographed, coolest looking bits in Star Wars ever done. And then he gets cut in half and goes out like a chump.
But he doesn't die. Spoiler alert.
That was So he doesn't technically die. So, but
anyway. Should we talk about Microsoft?
I guess we should talk about Windows. Don't get me started on Star Wars. I guess people want to actually hear us talk about Microsoft.
Yeah.
So we should also talk about Tesla at some point, but that was big news. But you tell us about 20H1. New version came out. I just installed it right before this podcast, and I can confirm the watermark is gone. And Microsoft says it's gone because we're done. It's all fit. Oh, wait, no, they actually said it's not done.
Yeah.
Don't
So
read into that,
So
Dan.
they have to do that because generally when the watermark disappears, it means they're just about almost done. It's not 100% done yet, but the build compiled is what Microsoft internally calls a production signed build, in that if it did roll out to the public, it could be serviced just like a regular, public release of Windows 10. It's a release candidate, but it's not the release build. That's still not been signed off on, and I don't think it will be signed off on for another few weeks. Mid-December is what I'm hearing regarding that. But we are basically done at this point. Do not expect any new features from here until RTM. It's basically just bug fixing at this point and just polishing the OS to make sure it's good enough for release. Now, even though it's being finalized in December, that doesn't mean it will roll out to the public. As far as I'm aware, they're still planning to roll the update out to the public in March/April, which means it's going to spend a couple of months in the release preview ring where Microsoft will continue to service it with bug fixes and whatnot. So just because the deadline is mid-December for it being done on the mainline development branch, that doesn't mean all of the, once that's done, the ship sailed and they can't fix anything else. They're going to continue servicing this release until it rolls out to the public in 4-ish months or so. So plenty of time before the public get it, but about a few weeks left before those early ones who want the RTM as soon as possible can download it and install it. Technically on an unofficial level anyway, because Microsoft will not release the ISOs for it straight away because they're weird like that for some reason. But that's basically it for this build. Microsoft did highlight some Cortana on Windows changes, which are worth highlighting here because I don't think we've talked about it too much. But as we all know, there is a new Cortana experience in the works for 20H1. And it's a step forward and a step back in some ways and other ways. So, for example, the new UI is very nice, very clean. It's a UWP app, so it's very fast and very fluid. And it has, productivity-related skills. Microsoft is saying they are, this new Cortana is now with more productivity. And it can do things like send emails, show emails, all calendar-related stuff, set up a one-to-one meeting, when's my next meeting, etc. You can also do usual sort of system commands such as open programs or change the brightness or turn Bluetooth on and off. But it can't do some of the funner stuff that Cortana used to be able to do, or other assistants available today. So you can't use it for, trivia-based things. You can't ask.
But that's coming back, they said.
Yes, right. I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
These will come back at some point, but at launch, it seems like these won't be there. Being instant answers, jokes, and other assistant conversation, and timers for some reason. So you will no longer be able to set a timer with Cortana. I'm not sure if this means all the appliance-related stuff will be there as well. They don't mention it as not being there, but they also don't highlight it here. So that one's remains to be seen. I haven't been able to try the new Cortana because it's US only for now. Although they do say it will be coming to more languages and regions soon. Hopefully that's before GA. In March.
I'm using it right now. It is funny because some of the basic stuff is done. I was asking it what percentage of this number of another number, and it's like, sorry, I can't help with that.
Yeah.
Even basic math, it doesn't do things, but they do have suggestions like cancel my 4 p.m. meeting, open Word, create an appointment for Monday. Mm-hmm. Let's see what else they have. Cancel my next meeting, add training for Friday. Yeah, so they have a lot of these kind of samples, but it's pretty limited at this point.
So yeah, like I said, it's very much focused on productivity stuff right now, although Microsoft does say some of that more fun assistant type stuff will be coming back in the future. And this kind of ties directly into the other side of the story we've been hearing about Cortana on mobile, in that Cortana on mobile is going away for most people. Those in the US are safe for now.
Woo!
But, I don't know how long that's going to last because everywhere else, Cortana on mobile is going away.
It's curious. I don't understand why they're keeping it in the U.S. because, obviously, I'm a pretty big advocate of Cortana. Rather, we've had this discussion endlessly. I don't find tremendous value in AI and assistants yet. That's why I actually do like the inclusion of it in Outlook. For me, that's actually sort of this is actually kind of a useful solution for AI and an assistant. But the app, on iOS, is just they redid it. And we're like, oh, cool, the version 3.0, it looked really nice. And they slowly pulled even more and more out of it. It used to be sort of a hub. It would show you your news, your to-dos, maybe some emails. It was actually sort of a collection of some of your Microsoft stuff. And I actually liked this idea. And And then we asked Schumann about that. He's like, well, people are basically already using it as a hub, but in Outlook. That's why we're putting it there. I was like, okay, that's fine. But it's actually, they've been pulling this stuff out. Like, I'm going to open it now. Let's see. Actually, I took it off my home screen or my
It's
first page.
useless now. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, this is all it shows now. It's like it shows you the current temperature and
Events.
events, and that's but you can see all of the white space because
Yeah.
obviously I'm not very busy, but that's all it does, and it's like that's not really helpful. So even I don't know why they're keeping it in the U.S. It's sort of like why bother at this point?
I guess the only reason I can think of is that it will be the default assistant on the Duo, and the Duo will be US only at launch, and therefore it needs some kind
True,
of
but that
assistant.
was on the iPhone, so it's like
Oh yeah, that's true.
So I even tried it on the my Android
Yeah,
today.
maybe they're planning to reintroduce it to the rest of the world at a later date with, on par with the US version. That would be nice, but I don't see why they'd have to put it now for that to be a thing. It is very curious, and it's unfortunate as well, because if you are somebody in the Microsoft ecosystem who has tried very hard to be part of that ecosystem on Android, you are now losing the assistant feature. You'll have to fall back to Google Assistant or Alexa if you're not in the States. Not that Cortana was very good at being an assistant on mobile anyway, if you're outside the US. I have Cortana set to the UK on my Android phone, and it's basically useless. It can do trivia-based stuff, but it doesn't have any of the appliance-based stuff, so I can't turn on the Xbox with it on my phone unless I set it to the US to do so, which is it's unnecessary to begin with. But
I mean, this was always a challenge for them without having their own phone
yeah,
to set it as default. It's sort of like, even Alexa has this problem, by the way. Like, I don't know how many people actually use the Alexa app on their device outside of controlling some things, but like it's still not the default assistant for a lot of people.
And when you can't shout a wake command for it, it becomes even more useless. Like on an Android phone, you can't shout Alexa at it. I don't think you can. But you definitely can't with Cortana.
If it's on and you're using launcher, you could.
Yeah, but only if you're on the launcher. If you're elsewhere, it doesn't seem to work. Yeah, so unless the app is active and on the screen or the launcher, it won't. The hey commands never work normally, which kind of sucks. Only Google Assistant has that capability of being a wake word for everywhere, unfortunately. So yeah, I also want to quickly mention, so the Cortana mobile apps, the dedicated ones on Android and iOS, are going away, and also Cortana inside the Microsoft launcher is being pulled as well. So you will no longer be able to access Cortana at all as a standalone thing on mobile unless you're in the US, or unless you set the Microsoft launcher to the US. I assume that will be a way around it, but otherwise it's going away. Goodbye.
and someone brought up in comments, I use Cortana on my phone for reminders. It works perfect because the reminders pop up on my PC.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're going to suggest using To Do, which is, of course, cross-platform, lives everywhere. And To Do still hooks up to Cortana. So it still works in that sense, but that's sort of like their thinking. There's now a dedicated app just for your reminders. And to be fair, To Do is really good at that stuff. And if you look at the amount of features they're putting into To Do, to me, conceptually, that makes more sense as a productivity app. Like you can use it on a Surface device, ink in there, attach images. You can now share. Like it's way more powerful than Cortana's simple reminder things, but they tie into Cortana, so you still get the notifications. But we forgot to ask this actually when we interviewed Schumann, which was kind of surprising. We both forgot, I believe. We didn't ask him about the Surface Duo.
Yeah.
And what their plans were for that. Not that I was expecting him to be like, oh, yeah, sure. And pulled out here's our chart, But it would have been nice to get them, on the record because there's so many questions, right? Are they going to have Cortana as a default assistant on Duo?
And I've been thinking about this, and I don't actually know if they're allowed to, because the Samsung phones, they have Bixby, but it's not set as the default assistant. It is on the dedicated button that they have, but if you hold the home button, it's always the Google Assistant out of box. So maybe if you have Play Store, you have to have the G Assistant as default out of the box, maybe? I don't know the rules around having the Play Store on your device and whatnot.
And we don't know with the special deal with Microsoft, was Microsoft allowed to have any, changes here? Yeah, there's so many questions. And I have a feeling that Microsoft themselves didn't know some of this.
Yeah,
But
and by the way, when I said the Duo will be US only, that was me sort of being slightly sarcastic, although it's probably true. I don't know that for sure, but considering Microsoft's track record with releasing new Surfaces in the past, Surface Duo being a brand new form factor and whatnot, I think it will be limited quantity US only at launch, and then over time will come to other markets.
maybe.
Yeah,
I mean, I want to give them a little credit. They've gotten much better
they
at these
have. I
launches.
agree, they have. But
You know,
Surface. Well, as we'll get to in a minute, the Surface earbuds were originally going to be US only at launch as well, and that seems
is
like a
that what it
product.
was? I forgot that part because
Yeah,
I know. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
because that seems like a product that you could just launch everywhere. Like there's no there's no regional changes to the software or anything there. But even that was going to be US only at launch. So that
Yeah.
was so yeah. I don't know what the Duo will be, but if I had to put money on it, I'd say it'll be US only at launch. Unfortunately.
20H1 final thoughts. I'm using it on my main PC. I'm still using this HP Omen X, Omen Tower, which I always forget its name. Oh, but anyways, I still got to review it because it's baller and it's just awesome. Um, but I'm using it there daily, no issues. Uh, I'm about to put it on my. So the challenge with my job is like I just put my Surface Laptop 3 13-inch onto release preview, and I got a bunch of firmware updates. And it's hard to know if I'm getting those because I switched to release preview or because they're rolling out. And it turns out they're a little bit of both. So it told me they're not on release preview and they're just about to get some firmware updates. So we're trying to dig up on that. But I do want to put my other Surfaces, including the Pro X, onto 20H1 because it's such a minor kind of
Yeah.
update that there's not doesn't seem like any risk here in putting it on your main PC.
Yeah.
Of course, this is relative to I think PCs that are older tend to have more issues, but
It would have been nice if they could have got the new Edge slipped into this OS in time for the RTM, but I don't think they're going to do that. They do have 3 weeks, and Edge. I mean, they could slip in the Edge stable installer in there, but I don't think they're going to do that for 20H1 at this point. So the only real blockbuster new feature in this update is the new Cortana stuff, and that right now is US only. So rest of the world,
there
this
you go.
is nothing. It's not. There's nothing here. Just polish and fixes and just general OS improvements.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about considering you just launched new hardware. I would assume, but that doesn't make it right at all, that there's some optimizations here, specifically with the Pro X.
Hopefully.
Because the one thing about that's nice about having the Pro X out now is that Microsoft I mean, they've always been paying attention to ARM, but now they have to pay a little bit more extra attention to it. And there's some unique stuff with the Pro X. For instance, it has a power slider for the processor. And if you know on Windows 10 laptops, you can set the power mode to performance and battery saver and in between. On ARM devices, we've never seen that. It's always just been a fixed clock. It scales up and down, but that's it. The Pro X, though, it does allow you to put a slider and basically run into a performance mode, which is kind of cool because it goes to show you that chip is clocked, and allowed to do a little bit more. So I'm just curious. Battery life has also been a concern. So with the Pro X, it's good. It's just with a 38 watt hour battery, it's not 15 hours. It's not even close to that, right? And I did confirm, by the way, with Microsoft, and I haven't done any article on this because it's not much to say, but when they announced the Pro X and they showed it on stage, they demoed about how it has some advanced AI capabilities, specifically with Skype, which what we're using right now, and how it does this thing where it creepily adjusts your eyes so that it looks like you're looking at the person and not the webcam. That's not live. So if you're curious why no one's mentioned that in the reviews yet, it's because it's not there. Microsoft told me it's coming in the next few months.
Wow.
Yeah, so give or take on that, right? So when that does come out, of course, I'll do something with it, but that's part of that chipset. So I imagine there's going to be some tweaks going on there for that, enabling things. But yeah.
Well, on the subject of Surface, there was a little bit of Surface news this week. The earbuds have been delayed. They are no longer coming in December for those in the US. They will be launching in the spring of 2020 for not just the US, but other regions as well. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah, so this was kind of interesting. They never gave a date for Surface earbuds outside of sometime the holiday season, which of course is pretty vague for those of you not in North American markets, or that's usually anywhere from after Halloween through Christmas or even New Year's, right? It's a pretty broad time frame. But as we've been approaching Thanksgiving, which is next week in the United States, there was no date, and I've had people ask me, we hadn't had any guidance on this. And it turns out now the original plans, as Zach points out, were it was pretty limited. It was going to be kind of US only, and it was just the white earbuds with they're not black. They're actually, Microsoft tells me, dark gray, or they just call them gray, but they're kind of like a dark gray. And those are supposed to come later, which, to me was kind of a bummer because I get the design is sort of divisive again, but I feel like the dark gray black ones were sort of neutral in that. Like they didn't attract as much attention if you're wearing them. And so to me, it would be a better story for reviewers to either have one or both, but to compare and contrast those because I actually like the design. I'm going to go on record with this, saying that I like the design. But so US only. Now they're going for a global launch in spring, which is kind of cool. So both colors will be available globally coming in the spring. Now, of course, the real question here is what's the real story going on there?
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of manufacturing issues as well as possibly software stuff. So people have joked around cynically they had to remove Cortana. Listen, if they want to remove Cortana from this, I'm sure they could do that overnight. That's just like you would just hide it in the software, right? That's it. But as I joked around with someone on Twitter, I'm like, you do realize Cortana doesn't physically live in the headphone.
you have to evict her.
Yeah. So and it's not going to take 4 months and a team of people to now, get her out. Victor. And we should talk about it because Microsoft didn't make a big deal about Cortana, but Cortana is definitely there. And the reason they didn't make a big deal about it is because they're kind of being neutral on this. So if you're using Android or iOS, you can actually choose which assistant you want to use with these headphones. They'll just respect that. If you do want to use Cortana, though, it will be there. And especially if you're getting the Outlook clients with Cortana, it works with that. But yeah, you can actually pick and choose. And if you're setting it up on PC, it still uses the Cortana app and it'll work through that. But they are, in tying with that Cortana app going away on mobile, we mentioned about how they're going to pull out the headphone setup for Surface headphones and earbuds as a separate app. It was going to be more like Bose, which is just you launch the app, it checks for firmware updates, and that's kind of it. You don't actually reuse it very often. And that model makes more sense anyway, because if you get new headphones, you're not like, oh, Surface earbuds, let me go get a Cortana app. It's like, that's not how that works. Yeah. So I think it's a combination of those things. It could be also tweaking stuff. They're not going to add active noise canceling. I want to be clear about this because I think it's a really important discussion. Active noise canceling is good for some people. I actually don't prefer it for this style of headphones. I use the Bose Free Sports for the gym. They don't have, not only do they not have active noise canceling, they're like the earbuds, which is they fit around the outer part of your ear, but they don't go into your ear canal. Because of that, I could be at the gym for 2 hours and wear these, and I never get ear fatigue. They're just comfortable. I could wear them all day. On top of that, if someone drops a weight, someone comes up to me, talks to me, I can hear them. And I get some people don't want that. They want complete isolation. But for certain headphones, like if I was on my bike, you actually do want to hear ambient noise. I'm just saying this is for some people, this is a purposeful choice that we prefer. Now, if you want the Apple AirPods Pro, which has the noise canceling, you can get that, but go read the reviews on this. It's been pretty clear on these things too. One, part of it goes into your ear canal. And that's fine if you're going to wear them for an hour or two. But if you wear them for many hours, this can actually cause soreness in the ears. That's why some people don't like. I don't like that. And two, they're still AirPods. Like Zach and I were joking around before the podcast. Like, there's no way in hell I'm ever buying AirPods. I hate that look. I actually do prefer the way Surface headphones look. I actually think they look kind of cooler. And three, this is really important too. Microsoft's going for a certain functionality. Like I said, part of that is you're wearing these in the office. You wear them for 8 hours, your entire work shift. You can take calls on them with Skype. You can listen to your music or a podcast. But if someone comes up to you, they could talk to you and you'll hear them. But you could also use them with multiple devices. Like, I think most of us want to have headphones paired with our phone and our PC and jump between them. Surface headphones do that, and that's like a major kind of feature. And I know that sounds weird, but like Sony headphones don't do that, and neither do the AirPods Pro. Now, the AirPods Pro do that if you are all on Mac. If like you're on a MacBook Pro using an iPhone and iPad, I think it can jump between those. But in which case, like, why you're listening to our podcast, like, why you use it, this is mostly for Windows 10 users, people who work on PCs and then have an Android or iOS smartphone. And to me, that's how I use these things. I want to use them with my phone, but when I'm on, I want to use them with my PC too. Also, finally, just point out the noise canceling is good, but unlike the AirPods Pro, but it's not as good as over-the-ear headphones for what I think are obvious reasons. Over-the-ear headphones work very well for this because it's a physical thing. But the AirPods Pro, like if you want to use them on the airplane, like a lot of reviewers said, like it's okay on the airplane, but it doesn't block a lot of the noise because they're just not that powerful enough to do that. So, keep all this stuff in perspective. I think it's just different markets. Like if you really want active noise canceling earbuds, by all means, go check out Apple's. But I actually don't want that. Actually, what Microsoft is selling with this, that feature set is actually what I want. And so I like just having that choice.
But with that said, feature for feature and price to price, they cost the exact same. And technically, with the noise cancelling on the AirPods Pro, you're getting more for your money compared to the Surface earbuds. Because I'm trying to think of the Surface earbuds feature set, and I don't think you can sell being able to switch PowerPoint slides as a feature worth, $249 over the, or compared to the AirPods Pro.
That's true.
I feel like these earbuds should be $50 less. I really do.
Yeah, I don't think I'll disagree with you on that. That's true. They are expensive. I do like the swipe gesture and touch controls. I think that's cool versus like the AirPods have like you squeeze the stem, which is not a sentence I thought I'd ever have to say on a tech podcast, let alone just in my existence. Like just squeeze the stem. But that's apparently how that works. And I say works in quotes because I don't think it works very well for a lot of people. Yeah. But yeah, again, is that worth the $50? Yeah, I mean, and the audio quality, you and I both heard them. They do sound very good. Now, we didn't get to take them home and try them using our day-to-days, but I was very impressed with the audio quality of the Surface earbuds. But again, that's by themselves. How do I compare to the AirPods Pro, which weren't out at the time? I don't know. Apple's technology is pretty impressive with the AirPods. I'm willing to even default to saying that the AirPods Pro probably even sound better, or even the Sony ones probably sound better. But I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point. I think that and they could revise the price on these, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Panos, if you're listening, make them $50 cheaper. Thanks. Yeah, but otherwise, like the Surface earbuds announcement to me was the weirdest one of the event. Not because of what they are, because they've done headphones before. It's kind of normal at this point. But just how they sort of announced it. They're like, here they are. They're in my ears. I can swipe PowerPoint slides. They're coming at some point in the future. It's basically what they said. They didn't give a firm date like like most of the other products they announced. I know they were pretty ambiguous on the Duo and Neo launch dates as well. But since the earbuds were US only, but this year, but there's no set date, that rung bells in my head. Like that, they don't seem confident they're going to get these out this year, and it turns out that was correct as well. And I do agree with you, Dan. I do think it's a software thing. Them pulling Cortana and having to build a dedicated Surface wearables app is probably taking time, and they want to get that right and make it look as nice as possible. So yeah, delaying this I think makes sense. There's no point in shipping buggy hardware because that's never a good idea.
Right, or a limited market and all this kind of stuff. So, but yeah, in the scheme of things, earbuds are always kind of weird just because it is this accessory, and I don't want to dismiss that. They have a big team working on this. Like the Surface team really focuses on audio. Like they have a big team on that. And I've said in all my reviews of the Surface devices, like their speakers are really good. Are they as good as the Apple ones? Well, I mean, the new MacBook Pro has like 6 speakers apparently in it, which I think is a pretty big advantage. But I mean, if you look at the Pro X, the Surface Pros, and even the Surface laptop specifically, I've always enjoyed the audio. Like they do really good stuff with the audio. So, and I like the way the Surface headphones sound too. Yeah. For me, I have, if you haven't seen my review for the headphones, I do have the Bose QC35s. I do have the Surface headphones, and I have the Sonys, the MX3000s, whatever they are. They all sound really good to me. I think the Sonys sound a little bit better than all of them, but then the Sonys can only pair with one device at a time, which is why I don't use them all the time because that drives me nuts. I hate when I'm traveling because when I'm traveling, the whole point is I'm on the airplane, I'm stuck in my seat. I usually have like my Surface and my phone. I'll use my phone for music, but then I use the Surface for movies. And so I switch between them. And having that Bluetooth is, being able to do that is important. With the Sonys, I can't do that. And it's just like, ugh. So I have to physically plug in, which is cool, unless now you're on the Surface Pro X. You don't get a headphone jack, so it causes all sorts of issues. Um, but I don't know. We'll see what happens with the
Yeah.
earbuds.
Do we know if the earbuds have wireless charging? I hope they do.
I don't think they do.
Oh my god, are you serious? That's terrible if they don't. Because
You have so the pack is a Type C charger.
That's true. Yeah, but there's also a Type C charger on the Galaxy Buds, and they do wireless charging.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to look at the specs page. I don't think they do though, which is again an oversight. They could fix that.
$250, guys. these earbuds cost, and they don't have noise cancelling or wireless charging. Why do these exist, Microsoft? Come on now. Listen, PowerPoint slide changing is not worth that much money. I promise.
Yeah,
I guess maybe it's
tech
just because
specs.
Surface Duo doesn't have a headphone jack, so they need earbuds for it. I don't know. But yeah, Surface earbuds delayed.
They do get good battery life. This is important. I mean, it's 8 hours of continuous listening on a single charge.
Oh, that's not terrible, I guess.
Well, compared to AirPods Pro are 5 hours, 4.5 hours with noise canceling on. I mean, they did make these to last all. Like I said, the idea is you kind of like go to work with these and just kind of keep them in all day, and then the case can charge them for another 2 8-hour charges. And 10 minutes of charge provides up to 1 hour battery life.
Right. Well, there you go.
But yeah, it supports aptX SBC for the audio codecs. They are IPX4 for waterproof rating, which isn't a lot, obviously. Charging case, 3 pairs of silicone tips. Yeah, just Type-C charging, no wireless charging.
Well, that's another huge oversight, in my opinion, because obviously I have the AirPods, not the Pros, but the normal ones, and the Galaxy Buds, and they both support wireless charging, and I think it's great because you can just, throw them on a charger and they top up and then they're ready to go again without having to fiddle with a cable and plug it in and stuff. But I guess I'll have to fiddle with a cable again when I get the earbuds in.
Some people are saying no Bluetooth headphones should be released without multi-device support. I agree, but there is a justification why Sony does this and why Apple does this, and I'll leave it to you. Again, this is why I think it's just important to have choice on the market. The reason Sony does this is because they use a special codec optimization that they're basically, you get a single connection, but it's a really good connection. That's their kind of motivation. It's good, so their audio sounds really good, and that's kind of the feeling with the Sonys is like the audio quality of them is really good, and that's sort of the difference. And Apple does the same thing too with their special chips that they have on these, where it kind of guarantees instant pairing, fast connection, and really good audio quality. And we just ran a series on Windows Central talking about Bluetooth, its history, its pros and cons, and this is sort of the con of Bluetooth, right? Which I think Bluetooth's gotten really good in terms of audio quality, but I'll just say that's the reason why those companies do those things. Whether or not you agree with it, I don't know. It's important. Some people just prefer to sound the Sonys. They're like, I'm just using it with my phone. That's all I care about. In which case, go for that. But I think for some of us, we do want to have multi-device world with headphones jumping between. And to do that, you need to just have like generic Bluetooth with that. So, whew.
Yeah. So on the subject of Apple, that was a strong segue there. UWP developers. Apple appears to be on the hunt for UWP developers to build out future Windows media related apps for its services. Now, this is quite interesting because Apple has in the past been very sort of, we only care about iOS, we only care about macOS. Our Windows offerings are based on the legacy platform and they're not very, very good. But that may be changing. Now Apple is moving more into a services world. They appear to be taking other platforms a little bit more seriously when it comes to trying to provide those services on those platforms. And based on a job listing this week on LinkedIn, they might be considering a UWP app for Apple Music or iTunes or whatever, that Windows media related apps they called it. So UWP isn't dead yet, according to Apple anyway, which is so funny because Microsoft is slowly moving away from UWP in some areas, and Apple are now adopting it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point. Apple is going through the same shifting that Google is and Microsoft definitely is, which is this idea of services, as you mentioned. Hardware gets you so far, but hardware is a limited market. Once you sell people iPhones and everybody has a smartphone and they hold them for 3 years, it's like, now what? So you go to services, and Apple's always done kind of its own services, but they were kind of content with just keeping those services locked to its own products. The problem there is you have shareholders, and shareholders care about growth. And how do you get into that growth thing if you've already sold everybody as much hardware as you kind of can, and it's just kind of plateaued? So this idea that, Apple needs to get its services on as much as possible is a familiar story. We had a conversation this week on Twitter about this regarding Spotify, which is, Spotify, for whether you like it or not, or compare it to Microsoft's own, Groove at the time, Spotify is everywhere. The reason, I went from a reluctant Spotify person to obviously being kind of forced into it once Groove went away. But since then, I'm like a hardcore Spotify user now. And the reason is because I go to the gym. That's all I listen to. I actually do like their recommendation stuff. But more importantly, it's now my Tesla, which is amazing. So I just jump between the two and I go to my car, it just switches back over. I can go home. It's on my Alexa speakers. It's on my Xbox. It's on my PC. It's on my phone. It's like literally everywhere. And people, it's one reason why I like using Hulu too. And, Hulu, I love-hate relationship with them. I think they make a very good service, but they just jacked up their service by $10 this week. That's after they already jacked it up by another $5 a couple of months ago. So I'm up $15 this year. But one reason I stick with them is why? They make a great website, and I can use their PWA. It's in the Microsoft store. It runs very well. So this week we've had I'll just say some news in the United States happening. So I was at work and I could just fire up my Hulu app and watch on my PC while I'm working, and Sling did this. I used Sling for a long time too. And, credit to them. They do have a nice UWP app, but I found Hulu's streaming ability a little bit better. I can also watch Hulu in my car now, by the way. So again, this stuff matters. So Apple getting stuff, I want Apple TV on Windows PC, not because I really want Apple TV, although I have a free year with Apple TV, because it's not an Xbox, I don't watch it.
Yeah, same.
So, they put it on my PC though, and this goes to Xbox. Hey, I mean, that's awesome, right? I totally want that.
Yeah. I do have a feeling the reason they are looking for UWP developers is so they can build an Xbox app. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they do the Disney Plus thing and release it only on Xbox, which would be a shame. But that seems to be a thing
that's true. We
these
don't
days.
know. I think the music stuff will be on PC,
I'd
but
hope
yeah,
so, yeah.
Apple TV. I mean, and to be fair, and it's funny, I think Apple TV, the website does work, or that's coming, and they're going kind of down that PWA route. In fact, from what I understand, the Mac OS client for Apple TV is basically a WebView app. Mm-hmm. So anytime, by the way, I just bring that up because it was hilarious, because when companies would do this with, say, Hulu on Windows, people were like, UWP's dead. You see, they can't even make a real app. Well, guess what? Apple doesn't make real apps for its own operating system either. They go with WebView. Why? Because it's cheaper. It's easier to maintain.
And it's cross-platform.
Most people don't notice the difference. I'm watching Mixer right now. It's on Mixer. I used it as a PWA that's pinned to the new Chrome, the new Edge based on Chromium. It works beautifully. Why do I need an app?
Yeah, I will say, you will start seeing some first-party apps of Microsoft move over to PWA as well. I know the Calendar app and the Mail apps, for example, will be at some point switched over to the PWA. Outlook.com is a very powerful tool, and it makes sense for that to be the default email experience on Windows 10 because it's just so good. Now, they will have native tie-ins to the operating system. React Native, for example, makes it so it feels like a UWP app, even though it's technically a web app. On Windows 10X, for example, all of the Office apps that are built in are the PWAs. They're not the UWP ones or the Win32 ones. They are the websites that have just been put into a window and given native controls here and there to make it feel more like a real app, but they are also the web apps. The future for Windows development, Windows app development, at least when it comes to Microsoft, is PWA. If you're providing a service, I think PWA is the way forward. So, Apple TV, Apple Music. If those apps showed up as a PWA box in a UWP window, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I use the Hulu PWA UWP app that's in the store. It's awesome. It's for one, it's consistent. That thing is the same PWA that's in my Tesla, which is wild. Like, and it gets dark mode, and it works. Listen, I can watch live TV. It's all I really care about. And I can install it on all my surfaces. Like, this is the world I want. I just want to install stuff and not have to really worry about it there. And if PWA gets me there, that's fine. Now, I'm not saying, there are cases where I think having a native UWP is going to give you the best experience. And Microsoft is keeping that door open for devs if they want to do that. But they just want a spectrum out there. They're tired of. You can argue that Microsoft at one time wanted to just be very prescriptive. It's like you get UWP or Win32. Pick what you want. If you want the future, you go UWP. And devs are like, you know what? We're just not going to do that. And that's why we're where we are now. But I would also say the dev world itself has changed. Forget about what Microsoft's with Windows 10. The fact is, it's, Google is pushing this. Apple is slowly going down the PWA route. Like, the whole dev world is switching away from this because companies don't want to pay for devs to specifically code things for a certain platform. So the world has changed here. But I don't know. I'm excited about this. I like to see what Apple can do. Obviously, iTunes, too, is a centennial app, but it's an old thing. No one's ever said anything polite about iTunes. But iTunes itself has been kind of retired in place of their music app and their store app and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. By the way, the Apple ecosystem is bizarre. Like, it is funny how everybody teased Microsoft over this stuff, but Apple's like broken off iTunes. Now it's Apple Music, but then they have the store, and there's like two stores. There's one for the App Store, but there's a store for the movies, and you can buy movies still on iTunes. But
you can also buy music on iTunes still if you really want.
Yeah. So it's like it's all spread out and super confusing, and like. There's two store apps, right? There's a physical store app, so you can order like an iPhone or an Apple Watch, but then there's like the App Store, and like, I don't know. This stuff is pretty funny that a lot of these companies are going down the route. We should also shout out to Google for canceling another service this week, which was their cloud. Yeah, their cloud printing service was just announced it's shutting down, which you'll be forgetting if you don't know about it, but it's been around for 10 years and allowed you to remote print things. And
I guess no one uses it.
I mean, go to Google Graveyard, look it up. It's a pretty funny site that documents it. I mean, and that segues nicely. I guess we'll talk about Stadia now. Mm-hmm. Into Google's reputation here, which is it's gone from an insider tech thing like, oh, Google might cancel something to like a real sort of meme about them that's apparently having real world ramifications. When you look at Stadia, they launched it this week. We don't know. Stadia is Google's game streaming service. It's going to compete with xCloud. It's going to compete with the Steam service that's out already, I believe, the NVIDIA one too. So they got a lot riding on this. Now you can argue Google's positioned in some ways to leverage this stuff. They obviously do cloud computing pretty well. They got a lot of servers and bandwidth ability. They have YouTube out there. And so they could definitely put all this stuff together. That said, this launch is a disaster and it just feels rushed. Like we had to get it out before holiday season. Like that was the goal. And people are not getting the kits. Some people are a lot of people ordered the kits. Some of those people are actually getting the kits. Some aren't. The ones who are getting the kits, some are getting the activation code. Some aren't. So like, it's weird. Like usually you would think if you order the hardware and you need an activation code, you'd open the box, you get the little welcome letter, and they give you your activation code, and you go, and you'd be up and running. Now they sent the code separately, and apparently some people aren't getting codes. So some people are getting the hardware, and then they're not getting the code, so they can't use it. Apparently, even if you do get all that, the setup process is kind of a nightmare. Apparently, you need like an Android phone or Pixel to activate it, and it's just like, I don't know. It's a very and then. Let's not even talk about the actual gameplay, which is limited. They only got how many games ended up launching? Was it 15?
I think it's 22 on Stadia.
Oh, 22. Okay. Versus the 50 that xCloud already has, which technically hasn't launched yet. Um, but yeah, the performance, a lot of people are getting massive, latency issues and delays. Now, to be fair to Google, this stuff is early. It can be fixed, and I expect it to be fixed. I don't expect this to be in 6 months. We're still talking about it, but who knows? The bigger problem, of course, is that there was a developer that kind of came out that 2 weeks ago, I think it was, talking about how there's this perception out there that if this doesn't work, Google's just going to cancel it. Now, that real interview, if you go check it out, actually goes on to defend Google. They're like, but the fact is, they don't cancel everything. It was actually pushing back against this idea. But that idea exists, and people are already talking about there's an expectation that this is going to fail and that Google's just going to cancel it. And that's terrible. You never want that perception. And Microsoft has had this perception. They still do. Every time we talk about new hardware, people are like, "Oh, Windows Phone, Microsoft banned," and just it's hard to escape from that once that is around your neck. So you actually got to try a little bit of Stadia, did you?
I did, yeah. So last week they gave some press in the UK a sort of advanced screening of the feature. It wasn't a controlled environment. It was at Google's offices, so they had the world's best internet and stuff. And in my demo, it worked. It worked really, really well. I mean, I couldn't fault it. Obviously, the lack of games was a big sort of stick in the side there for me. It's like that most of the games on there I don't really care about, and I finished the 3 games I did care about on there, which are the Tomb Raider games. They have all the new Tomb Raider reboots, and I've done them all on Xbox. There's no reason for me to play them again. Plus, you have to pay a subscription on top of that. So not only do you have to buy the games on Stadia, but you have to buy a subscription to actually get access to the service to begin with. So,
and if you leave the service, you don't get to take the game with you. Is that true?
Right. I mean, so actually, I don't know. That's a good question. I assume
true.
it will remain on your account. You just won't be able to access it.
Right. It stays with your account, but you can't then just go download a version to your computer.
I didn't even think of that. That's frankly terrible. And this is why I think xCloud's got to just outright win, because xCloud has the advantage of an entire ecosystem behind it. xCloud is tied to Game Pass, which is tied to Xbox. So if you subscribe to Game Pass, you're already getting access to 100 or so games every month, and those games change here and there. But if you are an Xbox gamer and actually have a library of games, in addition to that, you can also just connect your Xbox at home and play any game that you own, and you'll always be able to do that. That is an advantage that Stadia is never going to have. It doesn't have that healthy ecosystem of games yet. I mean, maybe in 10 years' time it will, but are you as a gamer willing to jump ship from Xbox or PlayStation or PC and go Stadia? When the next AAA title comes out, are you going to buy that game on Steam, or are you going to buy that game on Stadia? Yeah. It's you're not going to buy on Stadia. Why would you do that? You're going to buy it on Steam, or you're going to buy it on Xbox, because that's a platform, that's an ecosystem that you're either already invested in, or you know that you will always be able to have access to that game without having to pay a subscription, unlike Stadia.
This analogy I'm going to make is not a one-to-one, but it's kind of close. It's sort of like Google is entering this gaming space where Microsoft has been there for a long time. Mm-hmm. Not only that, xCloud is not new. It's new to us, but we actually wrote an article, I think it was 2013, talking that Microsoft was exploring cloud computing. And back then, this was even more of a pipe dream. It was just what people didn't even see the point back then. It was what are you talking about?
Yeah, you know what? It was an all-hands meeting, and they demoed Halo 4 on a Lumia of some kind. That was the demo they did. They were streaming Halo 4 from an Xbox 360 onto a phone using some very early xCloud stuff.
Yeah, so they've been thinking about this for a long time. And between the services they built up, they have a console, they have people paying a subscription already, and they have the cloud thing already in place, and it's already working, even if it's on a demo for Android right now, but it works pretty well. It's equivalent to how Microsoft launched Bing to go up against Google's search engine. Again, that was Google's thing. That was oh, we got search. We got this figured out. And everybody's why is Microsoft even trying? What's the point? That said, Bing has actually grown every single quarter. It's still not dominant compared to Google, but they're not doing bad. I also say that Bing plays a larger role in Microsoft's vision of computation, which is that they need an internal search for how Windows works and all that, but that's separate. But I'm saying the barriers are still there, right? This is Google entering a space where they're pretty new. They're actually very new, and they don't have a lot of cred. compare like Steam. Steam is so huge. Like Steam is so crucial to gaming. It's not even funny. Um, and so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how long they do pursue this. I don't. I haven't really teased them too much on Twitter about this because, like I said, this stuff is recoverable, and you don't want to underestimate Google. They could fix a lot of these problems, but you're right. I mean, the value is there for Xbox. We expect this to be tied into Game Pass, and they already have 50 games, and it's just like,
Yeah.
and the barrier for developers is lower. That's the important thing here too. It's not just a consumer, like what you experience. For developers, it's easier to do this on Xbox because they're not really doing much in porting their games to xCloud. Whereas that is the process that's going on. And you have things like Destiny, which doesn't have cross-platform play, I believe. So it's just like,
Yeah, that's true as well. So basically, Destiny 2 on Stadia is a ghost town because there's no real
right.
multiplayer. There's no market. There's no one's buying the game on Stadia, so you're not going to find anyone at Stadia. Someone in our comments does say that there is a free version of Stadia coming. The subscription service is just for 4K, but Google has just messed up their explanation. And I actually, that makes sense. If there is a free version where you can just buy the game and play it, that would make more sense, and I think a lot more people would be less averse to buying on Stadia than having to pay a subscription every month just to get access to your games library that you've paid for already. So it is early days. I will say it is early days for both Stadia and xCloud. I wouldn't jump into Stadia just yet because xCloud is nowhere near done, and I wouldn't choose a platform until we've seen the final product for both. In a year's time, this could be a very different conversation we're having. But right now, Google's decision to launch Stadia early hasn't proven to be successful for them. And meanwhile, xCloud has leapfrogged them in the ecosystem. And so far, people testing it at home seem to be quite happy with it. Now, it's not perfect. People online do say, yes, there is latency. It does sometimes crash out. It isn't it isn't a shipping product yet. But like Dan said before, these things can be fixed. And this is always going to be dependent on your internet to begin with. If you have a bad router at home, or router, as you pronounce it in the States, or you just don't have the world's fastest internet, these streaming services aren't going to be a solution for you, no matter how much you complain. It's just, that's the way it goes. You're going to have really good internet. You're going to have a really good router. And you're just going to have to be in an area where you're close to a data center where this will work better for you.
It's kind of funny because we did have that in our private group meet chat this week, that discussion where I'll just say some people didn't see the value. They're like, why do people want to do this anyway? And like your internet, LTE is not even fast enough to handle this. And it's true. But this is, again, a problem I keep bringing up about people, which is most humans are just incapable of thinking about technology beyond 6 months. And it's like either it's flying cars and bubbles and living in Mars, or it's just like, I need the new iPhone, when's it coming out, right? But the thing with game streaming is it's like, this is a long-term play. It's mostly about 5G. And 5G right now is kind of meaningless. Like, I mean, I know it's out there, it's coming out there, but like if I gave you a phone with 5G right now, you really can't make use of it, right? But that is going to change in the next 2 to 5 years. There's going to be 5G. They expect the rollout for 5G to be faster than 4G. Everybody I talk to as well, whether it's manufacturers or the providers, are saying it's going to be a bigger deal in emerging markets who primarily skipped 4G due to costs. You have companies like Huawei who are making it really cheap to roll out 5G. 5G is going to roll out to a lot of these emerging markets and be their primary internet connection. So instead of laying fiber optic everywhere, they're going to have basically 5G. So this stuff about game streaming is planning for that world. And for people who don't like game or don't get the value of this, I'll just point out, I lived through the Netflix thing. And I remember I had Netflix where it was a DVD. You would order DVDs. They would physically send you, and I would get them and rip them. I still have a collection of like flake DVDs in a case, right? Because I would just get them and I'd rip them and I'd send them back. And I just kept doing that. And then they started talking about streaming Netflix. And who was one of the first providers that had a Netflix app, by the way? Xbox 360. You know, one of the reasons I bought an Xbox 360, it wasn't to game. It was to stream Netflix.
I remember that. You could get it on PS2 as well, but you had to get a disc. It was a Netflix disc that you
Oh,
shoved into
really?
the drive, and it loaded up a Netflix app that you connected to the internet with, obviously, and then you could stream content from the Netflix service on the PlayStation 2, but based on a disc. That was the app store back then. You bought discs and put them in consoles. That was
That's funny.
yeah, that's crazy to think about how much this changed.
But I was like, for me, like Netflix and streaming, like this is wild. I'm like, I could just load this app and just watch movies on demand. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy. Like I saw that as the future.
I remember
And
that
now,
because they had the Showtime, didn't they? Where you could have your avatars come in and you could have like a virtual
yeah,
cinema and
yeah, you
watch
can
movies.
watch it with friends.
That's where is that feature? Oh my
I know
god!
that was a cool feature. It was definitely ahead of its time.
Yeah,
And I remember that was funny because that was in, geez, what year was that? Had to been like 2008.
yeah. It would have been
And it was
2008, 2009.
2008. I
Yeah.
remember because I got fiber optic in 2008. So I had like mad internet.
Yeah.
Oh, it must have been, yeah, 2008, 2009. And I got fiber optic, which is funny because it's 10 years later. I don't have fiber optic anymore. Just to show you how messed up that is in the United States. But I remember Blockbuster didn't see they literally went on record saying we don't see Netflix is not a threat. We're not even
Yeah.
on our radar. They didn't see streaming as a big deal, as a threat. And a lot of us did. We're like, dude, but you have the same arguments. No one has the internet speed. No one has the capability of it. We're going to have a box that does it, and people aren't going to pay that money for it, or the resolution sucks. They'll never be able to do 4K Blu-ray quality. The choice of movies is lame. It's only a few movies. All that. Now look at it, right? Now it's dumb, right? Because everybody has Netflix, and Netflix is this juggernaut now who's producing their own movies, right? So if you don't see value in game streaming, even if you're not a gamer, that's fine. If you don't think this streaming stuff is going to stick around, you're just bad at technology prediction. Like, because you could talk to any company right now. It's Microsoft, it's Google, Razer, manufacturers of these devices, the providers of 5G. They're all like, oh yeah, this is like the next big thing. This is going to be massive because they're already making a ton of money off of this. And esports has a lot to do with that. But yeah, this is it's a big deal, but we'll see what happens with Google. I kind of want them to stick around only in the sense of competition.
Yeah,
I do
me
like
too.
this
I
idea,
agree.
but not a good start. And they're going to have to shake this perception that they're just known for canceling products. Like their product roadmap right now is pretty screwy. And just look at the Pixel line. Pixel 4 has not gotten amazing reviews. Rene Ritchie, he's obviously an Apple fanboy. Sorry, Rene. But he did a pretty good video this week talking about how each release of the Pixel is like a refuting, I can't use that word, refuting what the previous one was. It was just like, whether it was having chins and bezels, like, they had the chins and bezels because it's like, oh, we have to have front-facing speakers that are dual speakers. And now in Pixel 4, they don't have that, right?
Yeah, although
And so, like,
the biggest one for me is on the Pixel 3 XL, they made a big deal about having the ultra-wide front-facing camera. Like, you can now
Right.
fit all your friends in, and then it's gone in the Pixel 4. It's like, well,
Right.
what was that? Where were you going with that? Come on.
yeah, so each release is like a reinvention. And they basically haven't figured out, like, you can make fun of the Surface Pro for this, right? A Surface Pro hasn't changed in years. And I also argue that the Surface Pro is kind of like a perfect piece of hardware. Yeah, the bezels can get a little bit thinner and all that. But other than that, the thing's awesome, right? It's like they landed on a design that just works. Like, why change that? I've kind of ripped on HP a little bit about this. HP tends to every year reinvent. That's actually their slogan, reinvent their PC. And it's like sometimes it feels unnecessary. Meanwhile, Dell, the XPS 13, barely ever changes. Snooze fest, boring every year. Even Michael Fisher said this on Twitter this week. But then I was just like, true, but the XPS 13, when it came out with that redesign,
It was
it
amazing.
was so far ahead.
Yeah, I bought that laptop. It was crazy.
Yeah, that in 2019, it still looks ridiculous,
Uh-huh.
And the XPS 13 Tune one that just came out is like that too. It's like that thing, it just won our Laptop of the Year award, by the way, so that should tell you something. But like, it's so far ahead in terms of design that they don't need to keep redoing it every year, right? So, but Google needs to figure out its hardware. The same way that's Pixelbook, was it the Pixelbook? And it looked nice. It actually gets good reviews. It's just super stupid expensive.
Yeah.
And people are like, it's too expensive. Then it came with the Pixel Slate. It's like, oh, all right, everybody's doing the Surface thing after they made a Surface made fun of it for years. Like, we got this. Boom, Pixel Slate. And everyone's like, oh, yeah. Then I reviewed it and it sucks. Like, it's like gone, right?
See, that's
Um,
one thing I appreciate with Apple is that they don't really go back on ideas they commit to. Like the iPhone
yeah.
generally doesn't change much because what they put in, they stick with, and they don't pull things out and whatnot. Like Face ID isn't going to go away. You know, they committed to Face ID. They're going to iterate on that, and maybe they'll get rid of the notch eventually. But Face ID will remain. They're not going to
Yeah.
go
And the
back to
fingerprint reader
fingerprint.
isn't coming back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But
Yeah.
like on the Mac, for example, they refuse to add touch, and I think they are going to stick with that. I don't think they're ever going to do touch on a Mac.
Right. Now you're right.
But yeah, but Google are all over the place. It's just like, oh, that didn't work last year. Goodbye. Goodbye, gone.
Yeah. And so between that and they're canceling services, like they're in a kind of a, for everybody that makes fun of Microsoft for screwing up its consumer play, I'm just going to say Google is not crushing it right now in terms of hardware and services and inspiring confidence. And I guess it leads us to Apple. You brought them up about how they commit, and boy, do they commit. 2015, they released a MacBook Pro. I actually have one of these, the 15-inch models.
Oh, the keyboard, yeah.
Well, this was the 2015 model was the last year.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, the at least initial one. And the reason I had one was because back in 2015, you could still make the case that the best Windows 10 laptop was a MacBook Pro. Even if you loaded Windows 10 on it, it was just
Very
no one
good.
was doing
Yeah.
that hardware. Now that changed. That was the same year HP came out with the Spectre, which I still say that was a landmark device for them that they worked with Microsoft on. And then Lenovo got their act together. Dell got their act together with the XPS line. And that's changed. Now I don't buy Macs to run Windows on them anymore, which is sane. But Apple then changed its keyboard. And they did two things, of course. They did the butterfly switch,
Yep.
which super shallow, but people kind of got used to it until it started breaking all the time. And then they did the touch bar. And they stuck with that for 4 years.
Mm-hmm. And the
Even
touch
though
bar's still around. That's not gone away.
No, but they did modify it.
That's true. Yeah, they did modify
It's
it. Yeah.
now not as wide and as tall. They brought back a physical escape key, which
Yeah.
was super important for two reasons. Developers required or really preferred having a physical escape key because they used it during coding. But also if the system hung, like the touch bar, like
Yeah.
the escape key
Wouldn't
would
work
hang.
anymore. Yeah.
And so you couldn't, it's like the getting rid of a Control Alt Delete. Like you couldn't, the thing was done. So they fixed that. And it's funny because the new MacBook Pro 16-inch is mostly a story about how a company figured out an awesome design in 2015 and screwed it up for 4 years, and then they just undid that.
Yeah, but credit's where it's due. They did try and make it work. That's why it took so long to revert back to the old keyboard styles, because
Right.
they were like, we want to make this butterfly keyboard work. We're going to try and fix it. We're going to iterate on it. We're going to iterate on it. And they started all those like repair programs where you can send your Mac in or bring it to a store and they'll fix it for free and stuff. They really, really, really wanted that keyboard to work, and it just wasn't. So they finally admitted defeat, albeit without saying they've admitted defeat, by bringing back the old keyboard design.
Yeah. It was funny. They didn't have a press event for this. And I
Yeah.
think because all the new features were them going and undoing all the old
Yeah.
features. And like, that's not a fun story to tell.
That's,
Like,
that's,
remember
not
how
an, that's
keyboard-
not an Apple thing, right? Apple would never be like, you know what, we were wrong.
we made a mistake.
Yeah.
So they just put it out there like it's our best one yet, you know? And to their credit, it kind of is, right? Because it was always a good laptop. They just screwed it up for 4 years, and now they unscrewed it up. And then they did other things. They upgraded the processors. I'm not going to give them a pat in the back for that. Like, all right, you put some of the latest CPUs in there that were available. Cool. They did fix the thermals a little bit, so that Core i9, if you were to choose it, performs better. Basically, its base clock rate is better. They did do some crazy things. You can now get up to 64 gigs of RAM. That's not an Apple thing.
Right.
That's an Intel motherboard latest chipset thing. If you have an XPS 15, you can put in 64 gigs. If you have a Lenovo X1 Extreme Gen 2, which I have here on the floor, I still got to review that. You can also do 64 gigs. Difference being on the Dell and the Lenovo, you can physically upgrade your own RAM. You just pop in to new SIMs or DIMMs. With the Apple product, it's all soldered. So if you want 64, you better order 64 gigs and then give them a ton of money. I believe it's $400. Same with the SSD. You can get up to 8 terabytes. That's It's insane. I'm not aware of any Windows 10 PC that can do 8 TB. You can do on the X1 Extreme. You can do dual RAID 0, which is pretty dope. So you can put in dual 2 TB and get 4 TB. I don't know if there's higher than that though, and you get very good speeds. But credit to Apple. But again, soldered. So if you want that 8 TB, even in 2 years, but you want to get that laptop today, you better fork over. The total cost, if you max this thing out to 64 gigs and 8 TB, is over $6,000.
Oof, that's a lot of money.
And you're not even getting a 4K screen.
Is it not 4K? But it is 16 inches, which is a bit bigger than the last gen.
It's getting close to 4K, but technically not 4K.
Yeah, but I mean, it's above Retina, right? So it looks crisp regardless.
Oh, it looks great. Sure. Yeah, it's not full HD. It's not that. No, it's high resolution. No HDR. Display brightness, I believe, is 415 nits, which again, that's where the Surface Line is. The Surface Line, although the Pro X is actually 450 nits.
I mean, but we've said with these reviews with the latest Surfaces that the displays could be better, right? Like that's what we're on now. Like the XPS 13 and the 15, for example, have the best, like some of the best displays ever. They're so good, and like the Surface and I guess MacBook are falling behind in that department.
Yeah, so to Apple's credit, their screens are very color accurate. They get very good Adobe RGB ratings, even higher than the Dells. But the Dells look better because they go brighter. They get HDR, Dolby Vision, better contrast, and they are pretty color accurate as is. Plus, you get touch and inking. Like that's why the XPS 13 2-in-1 is just, it's a really really nice display.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the audio, they got 6 speakers in there that supposedly sound really, really good, and I don't doubt it. Apple's always done good on audio. The camera, though, again, they're still flubbing things. The webcam is 720p,
it's terrible.
Which is hilarious. It's really bad.
Yeah.
And I only point that out because my Pro X review is up, the Surface Pro X review is up, and actually, I pointed out some things in there that a lot of reviews missed. For one, the keyboard has magnets now, and so it sticks to the display when it's closed.
On which one?
Yeah. On the Pro X.
Oh, wow, they finally fixed that problem. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's not like if you shake it, it'll come up. But there are definitely magnets there. I can, if you're watching this live, I'll give you a live demo of what I mean. I'm going to pull up the kickstand, and I'm now holding the Pro X.
Yeah,
and you see
look at that.
Keyboard does not.
Oh my God, they finally did it.
It'll do that, of course, but yeah, it sticks.
Does the Surface Pro 7 not have that then?
No.
Oh my God.
Just the Pro X. So Microsoft is clearly doing a lot of little design things there. And I forgot what I was going to say. There's something about. Right. So I made a big deal about the cameras on this thing because the Pro X has different cameras than the Pro 7s. They're 5 megapixel in the front, full HD, and 11 megapixel in the rear. That camera in the rear can actually shoot 4K video, which is crazy.
Wow.
And that wasn't made a big deal of. But these cameras are so good on the Pro X. They're just so sharp and just next level. So I only bring that up because the MacBook is like 720 and it sucks. So
maybe the Pro X's cameras are the same cameras on the Duo, and that's why Panos is like, don't worry, guys, it's gonna have a great camera.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the rear camera is that good. I still wouldn't want that on a camera phone.
No.
But for people who do whiteboards, like this is cool because it's in the camera app. There's a whiteboard setting now. You can just hit whiteboard and it does that automatically, which I didn't know was a thing on the camera app for Windows 10. But it's really good. The Pro X is really awesome for that. Now, the reason we only talk about this MacBook thing is because obviously it's a big deal. A lot of people, listen, whatever you say, the MacBook Pro still sets the bar for a lot of people in terms of design and functionality. And brings you up to the Surface Book. Surface Book 3, we're expecting obviously 2020. We don't know what's going on with it. It could be a complete redesign or a complete, just they're just going to throw new processors. We don't know. But my thing is this. The Surface Book is both amazing, but also, I don't want to say disappointing. The thing that makes the Surface Book so cool, the day they revealed that, everybody remembers this.
Yeah.
Was that moment. They're like, wait, go back. Panos on stage. And they re-rolled it. And then that screen detaches and everybody went, oh my God. It's like, it's a tablet too. But here's the thing. And Zach knows this. I know this. Everybody who owns a Surface Book knows this. We almost never take off that screen. That's not saying people don't. I do think out of all the people who bought the Surface Book, there's a small percentage of people who actually do use it to its full potential, whether they're taking off the screen, using it as a tablet, they're reversing it to use it as a drawing tool. I don't doubt people are getting benefits from it. But I think a lot of us who buy the Surface Book and use the Surface Book 2 don't. They just want
The
a straight up
power.
powerful
Yeah.
laptop. And Surfaces have always struggled in this area. What makes the Surface Book 2 cool was its CPU was basically an Ultrabook. It's an Ultrabook processor, which is weird because when you go up to the 15-inch model, again, this is Surface Laptop 3 criticism, usually you start bringing in more powerful CPUs, either 45 watts or even a 28 watt, which they don't use a lot of, but Apple uses those. But what made the Surface Book 2 cool was the GPU got real. Those are solid GTX 1060. That's a solid real GPU in there. And NVIDIA they require a lot of power, but it almost caused more problems because the GPU is in the base. And so when you separate the screen, they had to do this magic technology, which, to their credit, is bizarre, that you can detach from the GPU while Windows is live, right? That's crazy. But has this design caused more issues than it's worth? I would still argue a lot of us still would prefer basically something that's like a MacBook Pro that doesn't have all that and as much power without those sort of compromises. And I don't know. Microsoft is going to, I think they kind of want to do that with the Surface Laptop 3 15-inch, but that ain't it, Chief, right? That's an Ultrabook through and through. It won't compare to the MacBook Pro 16 in terms of performance. Now, what do you think
Maybe
about this?
I do wonder if the plan with the Surface Book is to turn it into a 360-degree hinge rather than a detachable hinge, because then that gets rid of the weird muscle hinge, and they have the need to detach from a GPU to begin with, and
Maybe the
also
only thing
maintains
is,
that thing for the people who actually do use it as a tablet sometimes.
here's the thing though, hinges on 15 inches kind of suck.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Like there's not a lot there. Like for HP has their Spectre, and it's okay. It's one of a kind. Like if you need a 15-inch and you want inking and you want that 360 hinge, the Spectre is like one of the really only choices out there. And they do, but there are trade-offs. It's pretty heavy. It's pretty big. That hinge is kind of wobbly because you got so much more weight now. It's such a jump. I don't see them going to a 360 hinge on the Surface Book 2. I know what you're saying. Like I actually really like the hinge on the Surface Book 2.
I
It's
do
just
too.
that
I personally do like it. I think it makes it look great, but a lot of people don't, and rightly so, because it does make the laptop much thicker than it needs to be. And also, the Surface Book's a heavy laptop. It's not light, and it's one of the heavier laptops out there, especially the 15-inch. The 15-inch is massive in all regards.
yes and no. I mean, if an XPS 15 is still heavy, it's still 4.5 pounds. The Razer Blade Advance is 4.5 pounds.
Sure.
Like these aren't like once you go to the 15-inch, like I think people are willing to put up with a 4 pound kind of thick laptop so long as it delivers on the performance.
Sure.
And
So maybe Microsoft should just leave the Surface Book as is and just make a Surface Laptop Pro. In that it's thicker in the base, has
right.
more space for thermals and better CPUs and whatnot, and then go
Yeah,
from
because if you
there.
think about it, so one of the trade-offs with the Book 2's design is the CPU lives behind the display along
Yeah.
with the RAM and the storage. And that's amazing. Again, I mean, I don't want to dismiss this. Like what Microsoft did to make that happen is ridiculous because no one else really does that. Although they've kind of figured out with the Surface Pro how to do that as well. Because there's not a lot of room back there. But you do wonder, like, if they were able to put the CPU, a 28-watt CPU into the base and have the GPU like more traditional design, and then maybe use that display for more battery or I don't know, something else. I don't know. I feel like they could make a MacBook Pro like device that's just a straight up laptop that also delivers on performance. But Dave Lee, popular YouTuber, I enjoy his stuff, did a really good analysis talking about one of the benefits of the MacBook Pro that people don't talk about is the fact that it's a 100-watt system, meaning it charges only by Type-C and it does 100 watts. And because it has a small charging brick, and you can use it on airplanes. And this is important. I mean, for some people, it's important. I know Ben Rudolph from Microsoft was making this point that, he really likes the X1 Extreme, but to use it on an airplane, and you can't charge it because the GPU is so powerful and there requires so much power draw that it's over. I forgot what the charge is, 140 watt, maybe 160, maybe 200 watt. But if you plug that into an airplane jack, it won't work. It'll pop and you won't get charged. And what Apple's managed to figure out is how to balance a powerful GPU. I say powerful; it's not as powerful as the NVIDIA stuff, but it's good enough with a more powerful CPU to 28 watts, I believe they're using. And they found this balance where they can hit just 100 watts. And it's kind of a magic thing. And I wouldn't mind seeing Microsoft try to figure that balance out too. And maybe now they're working with AMD, they could kind of do something there. But I think it is funny how, as much as Microsoft innovates on this space, some people just want a straight up laptop, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like I still think Microsoft should make a Surface desktop, like a proper tower PC to
Sure.
rival the Mac Pro. I mean, it's easy to say Microsoft should make an equivalent that everything Apple makes, because then
Right.
then we can have comparative.
No, you're right. You're
things.
right about the desktop too,
Yeah,
because what Zach means here is like, yeah, the MacBook, what is it now? MacBook, the Mac
just the
Pro,
Mac
right?
Pro. Yeah,
Like is bonkers powerful. I mean, it's like that's a workstation at that point, right? And so Studio is as cool as it is, but Studio has a different goal. Studio is not meant to be that. It's meant for artists. So they're trying to solve that problem. But it would be cool to see Microsoft go all out with its design abilities to create the world's most powerful like desktop PC and the world's most powerful Windows laptop. Just that's the focus. Yeah, they can have touchscreens if you want, support your pen and inking, but like have that as like its sort of goal. And I know there's flexibility there in terms of, especially because Microsoft has to contend with gaming, right? Gaming laptops are always going to be on another level. Or you have something like the Asus Mothership, which is such a bizarre PC that is probably going to be the most powerful like PC, I should say desktop PC around. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it would be nice to see them kind of go after that market.
I mean, they're doing a phone, so anything's possible.
Yeah, like, we always joke around about that. Like that team has to have designs kicking around. And it's just like Razer. We asked, Minling Teng, the CEO of Razer, I straight up asked him, like, why don't you have a desktop PC? Like, you gotta go read that review on Windows Central. It was pretty good. It's like, because it's kind of weird. You guys are involved in gaming. You make laptops. You make PC cases, but you haven't made a straight up Razer desktop PC. And he says, oh, we're working on it. We have ideas kicking around. But he basically said they haven't made something that his team hasn't made something that's impressed him enough to release it. I imagine it's the same with the Surface team. They have to be thinking about this stuff. But yeah, I would like to just see a straight up powerful laptop. Not the Surface Laptop 315. Listen, I I was critical of it, but I acknowledge there are people who probably want a thin Ultrabook 15-inch laptop, and that's fine. But let's get real. We should really get a real powerful Surface
Yeah, I agree. I do
laptop.
agree, because especially Microsoft likes to sort of aim at creatives with Surface, like the 15-watt
Video,
CPUs.
damn video people.
Yeah,
Like,
the 15-watt CPUs can only take you so far. At one point, you need to bump up to the either 28 as Apple uses, or the 45 watts in the Dells and whatnot.
yeah, yeah, and as long as I'm going down this wish list, yeah, a really powerful 15-inch, 64 gigs of RAM option, 4 terabytes or 8 terabytes for SSD. Microsoft can start leveraging maybe its ability its toolless or almost toolless, ways to upgrade internal storage. They've been doing these newer devices. That's super cool. That'd be a big win for a lot of people
Yeah.
because these MacBook Pros aren't really serviceable. I mean, you can bring them in. Uh, the display. I mean, listen, Microsoft makes really good displays, and Steve Batchy and his crew are really amazing. But let's go for that, DCI P3 high rating, Adobe RGB, the color calibration, the true, was it the thing where it adjusts your color based on your room? Like, this is the stuff video pros need and want. Let's see it happen, and bring Thunderbolt 3.
Yeah. Well, maybe what Microsoft is planning to do is just leverage Azure and stream GPUs to the to your device. So you don't have to have a GPU. Just say, "Hey, Azure, give me a GPU to render this video," and it gives you one.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Oh, well. But for those wondering about Surface Book 3, we don't have any definitive stuff.
No.
But spring, they tend to do stuff in
Yeah,
the spring.
it's a good chance that we might see something in springtime.
Yep. So, and maybe Surface Go 2. Although I'm still expecting Surface Go 2. They could maybe announce all this stuff late spring, but I don't think it'll be available till later in the summertime. But I think there's some announcement that'll happen in the next few weeks that this talk around Surface Go will start to make some sense about what I'm thinking is going to happen. I don't have any inside info on Surface Go 2, and I don't think Zach does either. But so when this news comes out, I think a lot of you are going to go, I bet that will work great and go well in a Surface Go 2. And it's what I hope happens as well, because I think it totally makes sense. But we'll wait for that news to come out and sometime in December. And with that, I think we'll wrap up the podcast. We went over an hour again. Hopefully it was entertaining. If it wasn't, sorry. You can let me know on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. You can tell me to shut up there or to give Zach more airtime. You can follow him at ZACBOWDEN and give him sympathy for having to listen to me talk so much. On that, we're going to do our Q&A right now, where we listen to, the audience here take questions. But if you're listening to this recorded, unfortunately, you don't get to hear that part. So you can join us every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, mixer.com/Windows Central, or on our YouTube channel, also at Windows Central. And join us live. You can see our goofy faces, and we can take your questions there. But as always, we appreciate you guys, and we look forward to talking to. Will we be around next week?
I don't know. Is there anything specific happening next week?
Well, Thanksgiving is on Thursday.
Well, follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated if we are or aren't.
Well, probably. I mean, I don't have any family.
Wow, what a downer.
Yeah. So on that note, I mean, I have people around me. I'm not a loner, but I won't be having. I don't have the giant Rubino Thanksgiving celebration, so I'll be around. But we'll see. And on that note, as always, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Cool. All right, yes. So if you have questions, we're going to hang around for 10 or so minutes to answer them. What if Microsoft doesn't want to affect its OEM sales of desktops and powerful laptops? That's a good point. I mean, maybe they don't want to tread on their toes in that area. I mean, I wouldn't. I'd believe it if that was the reason.
I mean, I feel like all that went out the window when they made Surface Laptop.
I agree.
Because we were up to that point. The argument was they are only creating devices for new categories, and that still holds true. I mean, Duo and Neo are that, right? Mm-hmm. But Surface Laptop, kind of bucked that trend. I remember talking to certain companies, other companies about that, and they're like, WTF? Like we got the other thing, but now they're just making a straight up a laptop, and they were still kind of laughing, a lot of these companies, because don't forget, these companies were like, it doesn't even have Type-C, it doesn't have Thunderbolt 3. And I was just like, well, that's to your credit. You could make these laptops and make them cheaper. But laptop is apparently a success. Microsoft has gone on record numerous times saying it's the most, has the highest satisfaction of all the Surface devices. And if you think about it, it has the least going on, so the least stuff to break, right? It's a straight up laptop. And I've said it myself. The Surface Laptop is still one of my favorite laptops. I just love it. So I still think they can make these devices if they want to.
With all the changes coming to Cortana, do you think she'll continue to support the connected home skill, or lose the ability to control smart home devices? We asked this, and
yes.
As of right now, there's no plan to remove any of that stuff. What Cortana can do in the connected home area, she will continue to be able to do in the US. So right now, at least, there's no plan to remove that stuff.
No plan to remove it, but obviously I think the long-term plan is definitely Alexa to take over that stuff, because Alexa does that stuff really well. The problem is right now, it's kind of I know there's the Alexa Cortana thing. You can call up Alexa and do these things, but obviously the UI, UX there, I should say, is not ideal, right? It's you want to reduce that barrier. And I think with this new, those two companies are working more closely together. They got that consortium working together. They want to get it so that you can just basically say Alexa on your PC and Cortana will do it for you. And I think once that starts to happen, then some of that stuff will probably go away or be deprecated. And I'd be kind of fine with that because that's Microsoft's vision is that, well, Alexa does that stuff already really well. Why are we going to spend our effort to basically duplicate it? This is the same argument for Spotify and Groove. They were spending all this time and resources just to catch up to where Spotify was 2 years ago. And so at some point, they're like, we're not going to ever catch up here and improve upon this. Like, honestly, like, how would Cortana be better at what Alexa does and that stuff? It's a simple command. Turn on my lights. Do this. Like, you can't make a selling point like we do that better. So we'll see what happens. But right now, that and your Invoke will continue to work. So did we get a Galaxy Book S yet? No. I don't have, and I don't know if we will. Samsung's PR got weird this year, and a couple other sites had to deal with this too, where we weren't getting notified of stuff that they were announcing. Like, for instance, we didn't live cover their new laptops, and we weren't told about them. And so I asked, and they're like, that's weird. You should have been. I'm like, yeah, but
we weren't.
Yeah, so PR, if you're wondering, sometimes PR is masterful, deceptive geniuses, and other times they're bumbling people who don't know what's going on. I would love to get the 8CX, Samsung, if you're listening, but as far as I know, I think production with the chipsets are causing delays. For instance, the Surface Pro X is also, if you want that like 16 gig model to 512, like it's back ordered. Like these are on short supply, and I don't think it's because they're selling out. I think it's because they're having tough time meeting production. And I think the Samsung device, which is supposed to be out, we heard September, then October, now November, is along those same lines. But I'm very excited about getting that device and trying it out.
64-bit x86 simulation for Windows and ARM. What do you think? We talked about this in last week's episode of the podcast, so go listen to that if you want to hear our thoughts on it. Overall, I mean, I think it's a good idea, although I'd hope by the time that's ready, most developers are compiling for ARM64 natively.
It's a Band-Aid. I mean, what we really want is ARM64 compiled apps.
Yeah, I know.
It's in 64-bit is sort of like, it's cool as a fallback, but you're still going to prefer the ARM64. So I think this will help. I think it's a good story to tell, but I think it misses the point of ARM. So
Cortana in Canada to stop working is set to the USA. I don't know. What I have a feeling is just if you're using Android or iOS, the Cortana app will no longer be present in the App Store if you're not in the US. But if you can download the app through other means and just set it to US, it will work fine. I assume. I don't know for sure.
What do I think of that new Razer? That is the flip phone that was announced last week. I think it's super cool. I think it sparks interest. A lot of people, you still have some people are like, I don't get the point. And I'm like, you don't get the point of a tall phone that folds in half that fits in your pocket now? Like, I mean, I don't know what else to say to those people outside but I think it's interesting. I'm not going to pay $1,500 for it. I think between the camera, it's not going to be that great. The processor is just kind of okay on it, and it's locked to Verizon. Like, but I think it's interesting. I'm glad to see this. Like I said, we're going through a phase now, just like Tune Ones were in 2012, 2013, which we saw wacky design. Some will work, some won't. It inspires people to start thinking, and we'll figure this stuff out. But I thought it was cool. I thought nostalgia, though. That's what a lot of that is.
When are developers able to play around with Windows 10X? This is a good question. So in January or February, I don't know the exact month, but around that time, Microsoft is planning to start sending Surface Neo dev kits to select developers. Now, this won't be like a public thing. You won't be able to request a dev kit. Microsoft will be talking to Facebook or WhatsApp or big like Twitter, any sort of huge developer who has a service like that, and say, hey, would you like to build or modify your apps to run on Windows 10X. In May will be build, and I have a feeling we'll hear a lot more about Windows 10X and Microsoft plans around that then, as well as an emulator will be released, so developers will be able to download Windows 10X and test the OS and their apps on the OS through an emulator, because obviously you can't install it natively on devices since it's for dual screens, and there are no... actually, I say that. Maybe they will let you flash it onto a select list of supported devices, because Windows 10X does run on single-screen devices. But if you're aiming at developers, what you want is for them to target the dual screen setup. So it would send mixed messaging. I don't know, but anyway, in May will be when developers can get their hands on 10x in some capacity. But yeah, I don't think it'll be before May for most people. What might the benefit be for Stadia to offer a free tier at 1080p streaming? How will they make money? I have no idea. I assume when you buy the game, a percentage of that goes to Google if you're on their service. But I don't know for sure.
How is the Surface Pro X screen compared to the Galaxy Book 2 AMOLED? That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what you would think. The AMOLED is definitely punchier. I really like the Surface Pro X display, though. Like, that's why I'm hedging a bit here. Like, my only complaints with the Pro X display were in the review. It's still glossy, and the Galaxy Book doesn't really solve that too much, I don't think. Although I haven't compared or measured. Neither have HDR, so they're not better in that sense there. And I don't know. The Pro X display, it's really good. Like, I really do like the Pro X a ton. It could be better in some ways, and I put all that in my review. But I don't know. The choice between AMOLED and LCD is always a personal choice. Some people really enjoy AMOLED, and I get that. Some people prefer LCD, and I also get that. So I don't know.
Will the services released next year be running Microsoft's new OS? Not all of them. So the Surface Neo will obviously be running Windows 10X. The Surface Book will very much not be running Windows 10X. That'll be a Windows 10 Home or Pro device. The Surface Go is an interesting one. It depends when it launches. If it launches in the spring, it'll be a normal Windows 10 device. If it launches in the fall, it could very well be a Windows 10X device, assuming Microsoft is ready to start talking about 10X as an operating system for more than just dual screens. Because
I still don't think they will. As
I
much
know,
as
I
I
don't
would
think they
love
will
them
either.
to.
Yeah.
But this is the problem with, it's not the problem with Microsoft, but it's an issue that they have a lot going on. There's a lot of parts in motion right now. You got Windows on ARM.
Yeah.
You have your old existing Windows 10.
Oh, that's true. That's very true. Yeah. Assuming the Surface Go is an ARM-based device, then it won't be Windows 10X. If it isn't an ARM-based device, then it very could be if it launches in the fall. Because Windows 10X doesn't run on ARM yet.
Right. Yeah. So Microsoft was very clear that Windows 10X will eventually run on ARM, but right now they're focusing on Intel. The problem with Windows 10X is there's Win32 as a subsystem, but then they got to get Win32 as a subsystem running in emulation, which is like
it's emulation on emulation.
It's like a nesting dolls of like operating systems. So they know they can solve that, just like the 64-bit thing, but it's like I think that's a problem they're just kind of pushing off. Right now they want to get Intel out the door.
I mean, they could very much have it at launch if they really wanted to. The problem with that is that the performance would be really bad and would leave a bad taste in people's mouths and could possibly kill off 10X. So they want to make the Win32 stuff feel as native as possible at launch, and that's why they're excluding ARM devices. So 64-bit native 64-bit processors only, because that's where they will work the best. Right, a couple more questions, I think.
Galaxy Book 2 LTE is awesome, but considering upgrading my Galaxy Book S LTE to the Book S LTE, is it worth it? That's really hard to answer. The performance is going to be way better on a Galaxy Book S, and Zach and I both got to play with it, and it's really nice hardware. Although the keyboard is pretty shallow, the display is great. But you're losing functionality. Galaxy Book 2 is, it's a Surface Pro basically. And so you get that ability with that really nice pen. Like that pen works really well in that. And you can use it as a tablet and taking notes. Whereas the Galaxy Book S, it's a straight up laptop and you're going to lose that ability. It's still a touchscreen, but that's kind of hard to compare, but the performance will be better. And the battery life might even be a little bit better since it's sort of a bigger device. So I don't know. It's hard to compare.
Can you comment on the Slack versus Teams thing, especially Slack talking about how they have more user engagement? Oh, we should have mentioned that. So Teams announced this week that they have like 20 million users now. But Slack's like, but not everyone's using Teams. Because what I think they're trying to say is Microsoft Teams is bundled with Office 365. But not every business who has access to Teams is actually using it for their default communication. I assume is what Slack is trying to say. Whereas if you're using Slack, you've paid for Slack, you're probably using it.
Yeah, it gets complicated because there's, I believe, 200 million Office 365 subs for enterprise. And now there's 20 million using Teams, which means, was it? That's 10%, right? So like, so only 10% are actually using Teams, which this is goes in the face now of Slack actually, because it's like Microsoft could be cracking. It's not because like, dude, we're barely getting started. We haven't even cracked 10% of all the Office 365 subs we have in Microsoft 365. So they have a potential, a lot of growth left. And Slack is sort of, I think, being disingenuous and ignoring that part. But to Slack's credit, one of the things that drove probably adoption of Teams was the fact that they're retiring Skype Business, which was a separate service. So in order to do the equivalent of Skype Business, now you need Teams, which means this happens to us. I'll get a briefing from Razer. They'll send a meeting invite, and it'll be using Microsoft Teams. So I have Microsoft Teams installed on my computer. I click the link, launch it, and we have our quick call, and then we're done. And we don't use Teams internally as a company. So my engagement on Teams daily is low. So that speaks to Slack's credit. I'm sure we're not the only people who are like that. But as I pointed out, I mean, it's Microsoft Teams has a lot of growth potential left. They just landed contracts with the Air Force and Department of Defense, and then Jedi and all this kind of stuff that's coming up. And those companies are starting to use Teams. Don't forget, if you have Office 365, you get Teams for free. It's just a matter of flipping a switch. And some orgs aren't using any centralized conversational system yet. And that's where it's like up for grabs. And then you have, and those are where Office 365 can definitely jump on Teams. So it's a stupid fight. But I get Slack. Look, they're the underdog here, right? They're VC capital in California going up against a juggernaut. But Microsoft came in 3 years after Slack. And if you look at the momentum of adoption, it's with Microsoft right now.
And it's important to remember, Slack wasn't the first. There was HipChat. There were many before it.
IRC. Yeah, I mean, stuff's been around. But now Microsoft this is Microsoft's game to win. I think the big thing with Microsoft is this, that their corporate customers who subscribe to Office 365 and Microsoft 365 have a ton of money. And so if you look at, they reported 91% of the Forbes 100 are using Teams now. What that's doing is it's cutting off Slack's ability to go bigger. So Slack is going to be really good for indies and small companies, and that's fine. Like, you can do well there. But if you ever want to go for the big companies with those $1 million contracts, Microsoft is like, sorry, door closed, we're here. And that's a problem for growth, because don't forget, you can get VC money all you want. At the end of the day, though, you got to show that growth story. Otherwise, well, we've seen what happens with companies that screw up.
Zach, any chance you'll ever post some of the Andromeda concepts / screenshots? So I don't have any plans to. There's no real reason. I mean, I might at some point, once the Duo's out and here's a thing, I might do like this is what the Duo would have been had Windows been successful on mobile. And in that article, I'll talk about and show off Microsoft's plans for Andromeda OS and whatnot, and how that would have looked on the device. Because I do think it's interesting, but I mean, nobody needs to see that stuff. It's just for fans more than anything, so it's not a priority. And I want the Duo to be out and things to have moved on a little bit before I do that, because I don't want people at Microsoft to get upset with
You should post it and then criticize the UI for being inconsistent.
and not finished. Yeah.
And just so we can try to get a live cam of Microsoft devs flipping tables, like, it was not even beta. How dare you?
I'm going to review it as like a shipping product.
Opinions on how the news of hardware sold in Russia must have Russian software. Briefly, this was the BBC broke the story about this new law that's being passed in Russia, that certain hardware on devices need to have Russian software installed. This is obviously a contentious issue, because people could be like, well, in the US, Google and Apple and Microsoft are also probably spying on all of us, and that's fair. Listen, I'm an American, but I don't sit here and feel like our history is rosy or that you should trust us, because we're the CIA, we have the NSA. Like, we're not perfect, far from it. Someone who studied a lot of I was a political science major. I studied the 1970s in Latin America, and you'll see we have a pretty terrible history. That said, I don't want to equivocate here. There's a difference between what the U.S. does. There is no law in the United States that says our hardware must come with US software pre-installed. That's not a law. I mean, it's by default because we make the software, we're the best in the services in that regard. But there's no law saying it has to be like that. So I can go buy a Chinese Huawei device and take my risks there, you know. I do not like when governments tell you you need to do something, and in this case, requiring software be pre-installed. Whether that means because that software is going to spy on you and because of Putin and all that, I'm not weighing in on that. I'm just saying it makes me uncomfortable, and it should make everybody uncomfortable. That said, all these devices are black boxes. I get a lot of review units. For all I know, HP is preloading spyware on my devices and, recording everything I write and say on there. I hope not. I don't think they are. But yeah, I mean, unless you're buying an air-gapped PC, go look it up what that means. You got to be distrustful of all this stuff. I don't like when governments tell companies what they need to do. Of course, we're going through that right now with the U.S. trade war. So,
yeah. All right. With that, I think it's time to say goodbye. We may be back next week. we don't know. I will keep you updated on Twitter, etc., etc. But until then, see you later.